Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Emma Sisson, and I'm joined by Elizabeth Cowell and Tom Flynn from SEC Newgate. Today, we're discussing the wide variety of platforms, channels, and strategies that SEC Newgate use to maximise the effectiveness of investor engagement for their clients. Lizzie, Tom, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Good to be here.
Now, Lizzie, starting with you, what are the guiding principles that companies should consider when preparing their IPO engagement strategy?
Well, I think the most important factor for any company developing their IPO engagement strategy to consider is the fact that the way in which investors are engaging with companies has and will continue to evolve dramatically. So the guiding principle must be, how can investors of all shapes and sizes learn about and engage with my equity story online? This is because there's a huge amount of research which shows that the vast majority of investment decisions, and these are institutional investment decisions as well as retail, occur when an investor initially sources information about a company on social media. Yet we're often staggered with the number of IPO strategies we see or have conversations about which really measure success based on traditional media print coverage. And look, that's not to say that traditional media coverage isn't important. Of course you want your name in the media, but it is to say that your investor relations strategy, in order to have real cut-through, has to be much more multifaceted, much broader in order to have cut-through in the long term. And it must really consider where audiences are really sourcing information about your company from.
And to that point, that audiences are looking online, the quality of your video and your graphic content matters. The standard is pretty high now for corporates, so it's important that you take the time and the effort to get it right and to do top-notch content that will get cut through online. Alongside that, though, there's a trust problem on social. Your company is looking to reach people that don't know about it already. Those people need to build their trust in you. The way to do that is to take traditional forms of investor engagement, such as media coverage, and place that in front of those audiences as part of your social strategy. That builds the trust and then opens the door for you to talk about yourself.
Absolutely. It's about taking the traditional strategies and marrying them with new digital strategies to create a really contemporary engagement strategy online.
You talk about technological change being a driving force for investor comms. What are the risks and opportunities that this is creating for listed companies?
Well, taking risks first, I think it's much harder in an online world to manage an overinflated valuation. Back in the day, before the internet, if there was speculation around a valuation, then it would actually be yesterday's news, as we all talk about in print media. But in an online world, the valuation can be syndicated, it's online forever, so you have to be really careful when you're speculating on your company's valuation ahead of an IPO.
Investors search for you online, you and your management team. So what do your own sources look like? Are company bios up to date and comprehensive? Are your LinkedIn profiles consistent across the business? What do we find if we search for a CEO's news, for example? Is it positive? What's there? All of these things add up to the picture of what is seen about you online. And that's become even more of an issue in recent times. You may have heard of AI overview on Google, which means that the top result for you on search will be, over time, will become AI generated, and that will be above the results that you control. And so making sure all those sources are consistent and correct is really important in that world. Alongside that, we know it's a Yahoo Finance poll last year said that investors are twice as likely as the general public to look for information online. So it's worth bearing that in mind as well. That the AI chatbot era is upon us, and and there are sources that need to be kept controlled in order to make sure that these are saying the right things about you and not hallucinating. We're also entering an era where generative AI and AI tools will offer retail investors access to professional level information. It'll become much more accessible to a wider audience. in that world, if a chatbot is telling a retail investor that there are, say, 10 companies that all have similar potential, what makes you stand out from the crowd? It's that online communication, proving your worth, showing the expertise in your business that makes the difference between them investing in you and investing in someone else. And finally, in terms of opportunity, you talked about opportunity there. Digital is measurable. You get to know pretty quickly what messages resonate with which audiences. If you add paid social to the mix, you can then segment that down, telling a story to institutional investors that's more nuanced, while telling a story to retail investors in the language that they use.
Yeah, really important points, really some great questions that companies will take away and consider. Any other tips that you have?
I think what I would leave any viewers with is the fact that a really successful IPO strategy will consider all of its stakeholders in their communications. Of course, investors being the primary audience, and they're the people we really need to bring along to the journey, but the internet means that gone are the days where you can speak to one stakeholder group in isolation, and actually your IPO presents such an exciting opportunity to engage with all of your stakeholders, whether it's your employees, your customers, on the global stage. So don't forget about that, and consider when you're developing your strategy how you can communicate with every different stakeholder group before, during and after your IPO.
Great. Thanks so much both for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can hear more at the London Stock Exchange's IPO Forum on Thursday, 14th of November. Thanks very much for watching.